Okay, so we're going to go over the evaluation criteria for the Local Food System Infrastructure Grant, fall 2023. I'm going to share my screen. And if I was just hearing about this grant, I might search WSDA Infrastructure Grant. And it happens to be the top result for me, but also because I've searched this before. But the website is a really long list of letters, so it's sometimes easier just to search for it in the search engine. So this is the grant website. If you would like the information in Espanol, the link here at the top will take you to that page. And I'm going to come back to the grant webpage, scrolling down. There's information here on the grant, and there on the eligible applicants, funding priorities. And so this is kind of the funding priorities. These aren't the evaluation criteria. If you want to see the details on that, we ask you to look into the grant guidelines. So there's a link to the grant guidelines in English here, and a link in Spanish, which takes you to that other page. And then just FYI, there's also the apply here button and some more resources to help you. So looking at the grant guidelines, some of this stuff is a repeat of what is on the main grant webpage: the timeline, grant categories, eligible applicants, allowable costs. We get down to the valuation criteria. And this is really important for anyone who's going to apply to understand and make sure that they read and are thinking about as they're writing answers to the application questions. Because this is a competitive grant, so we are going to have more requests for funding than we have funding, and so some people are not going to be awarded grants. So in order to help us award grants, we're going to have community reviewers evaluate the applications across 3 main evaluation criteria that have like little subcategories within them. And then there's also some bonus points. So there's a total of 78 possible points. And they break down to 24 points possible for project achievability or proposal achievability, 16 points for impact to business viability. And then the biggest category, 32 points for benefit to local food supply chains and market access. And then there are 6 possible bonus points that I mentioned. So moving back up to achievability. Yeah, go ahead.
Just even like pause. So like this is what the reviewers use to evaluate your grant proposal. And so really thinking about these guiding questions when you create it is going to just help really separate and like use your time in its best.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. So I'm going to go through each of these categories, and then we can pause for questions in between them too. So the first one, achievability, the first section there, section A, is just that the applicant's proposed project expenses are eligible for the grant. If you include ineligible expenses in your budget, the application may be disqualified, and then certainly those ineligible expenses will not be in your grant. So just being sure that you're checking the eligible expenses. The second category here in achievability is the project description is clear, reasonable, and achievable on the project timeline. So making sure that you're checking the dates of when you're going to receive items if they're being shipped to you, making sure that you're not asking for something that is just doesn't seem like it's going to be viable in terms of a business or operational project. If something is like a very new venture for you, you'll want to make sure that you have a lot of details and you've talked to people and gotten advice to make sure that you can describe it clearly and reasonably. Part C here is the applicant entity has experience with the proposed work, including past projects and/or staff or business partners. And so this can be a really broad definition in terms of experience. It could be even that you've had specific conversations with with people that are supporting your project or helping you guide the project. So that business partners section there, that can be really broadly defined in terms of people that are supporting your operation and your project. But of course, it always helps to have people on staff who have some experience with the project and or past experience with past projects. And it could even be experience at a past job or someone on your staff's past work as well. The part D here is the project description and budget details indicate a sufficient stage of planning and readiness. And so this is where we're really looking for details in terms of your budget that show that you've researched what you need to purchase for your grant, for your project, including like specifically why you chose the item you chose, and why it meets your needs why it meets your needs specifically. And the other thing just to note here is this is an ongoing grant program. And so if it does feel like you're putting together your grant application and you're like, there's a lot of question marks in terms of my budget or application, and I don't know if I really feel like I'm ready, then it might be a good strategy to wait on applying this round and apply next round when you have more of those question marks answered, and you can be more specific in your budget and your application proposal. The final category here is the proposed budget is reasonable and appropriate for the scope and scale of the project. And so there we're just looking to make sure that people aren't asking for way more money than what would be quoted or estimated for a given activity. And just making sure that we're using these funds responsibly and appropriately and investing in our local food system. So really quickly there, any questions on the achievability section of the evaluation criteria? We could also wait till the end to do questions if folks would rather go through them all. Hearing no questions, I'm going to move on to impact to business viability. And so this is 16 points, so a little bit less than achievability in terms of weighting. And there's 3 sections here. The first one is the degree to which the project adds additional sales channels or increases the ability to perform in existing sales channels for the applicant organization. And we've italicized applicant organization there because we're going to come back to this criteria for other farms or food businesses in the next section. And so what we're looking for here is really the idea of the food system is about different linkages between growers, buyers, sellers, processors, distributors. And we're wanting to see with this grant, food businesses, farms, ranches, fishers, expanding who they sell to, where they input food or product into the food system, and strengthening with the understanding that strengthening those linkages is kind of what strengthens the system as a whole. So examples could be like attending a new farmers market that you weren't attending before, or selling into a new city that you weren't selling into before, or a new specific grocery store. That is an example. Those are examples of adding sales channels. But you also could just increase your ability to perform in your existing sales channels by increasing your efficiency, by buying a piece of equipment that allows you to reduce staff time and get your product out much faster, or purchasing a cold storage that allows you to keep your product fresh longer so that you have less spoiled product and you're able just to sell more. Those are examples of increasing your ability to perform in existing sales channels, really related to your food product. The next section here is the degree to which the project would increase viability of the applicant organization in any other ways. We provide some examples here, such as general business planning or management, workforce capability, workforce safety, operational efficiency, food safety, plant sanitation, waste or wastewater management, or humane animal handling. So these are kind of maybe some other facets of your project that aren't directly related to sales channels or your ability to sell into markets, but increase the viability of your business in any kind of other ways. The last section here in impact of business viability is the degree to which the projected improvement to business viability seems reasonable, given the proposed project and the applicant's current operation and or level of planning. And so you just want to make sure that you're not that applicants aren't saying like, oh yeah, my project's going to do everything under the sun. It's going to have all these benefits when if you look at the proposed project, it's really just like a pretty small project and it might have some of those benefits, but we want people to be reasonable with what they say that their project is going to achieve. And yeah, and so if you have specific questions about that, I think Q&A time is a great time to ask questions about kind of the reasonableness of certain things. And just a plug for everyone that the Q&A sessions can be found on the grant website, and you can register for as many as you want, and you can drop in at the end of a Q&A session. If you don't have time to stay the whole time, that's totally okay. And you can even just work on your application during a Q&A session. And if a question comes up, then we can be right there to help you answer your question. So the third section of the evaluation criteria is the benefit to local supply chains and market access. This is the biggest part of the evaluation criteria with 32 possible points. So this is where we're really looking for projects to have system impact beyond just their own operation. So we've copied down that first one from impact to business viability to here. So it's the degree to which the project adds additional sales channels or increases the ability to perform in existing sales channels for other farms or food businesses within the regional food supply chain. So an example of this could be that you have an agreement with some neighboring farms you're putting in a grant for a wash pack station and cold storage, and you have an agreement that it's going to be a shared facility with those neighboring farms, and so then that piece of infrastructure would be serving more than just the operation applying. What we want to see, though, and we'll get to this a little bit down below, is that it's like really it's not just aspirational, but that you actually have like some structure in place for how things are going to be shared. Other examples could be organizations that operate more like food hubs, where they aggregate product from multiple growers, farms, ranches. And so just by the very nature of their business model, they're serving multiple farms or food businesses. Another example of that would be meat processors that serve a lot of different operations. And then I guess one more thing here, it's also increased the ability to perform in existing sales channels for other farms or food businesses. And so this is where we could see things like upgrades to farmers markets, where you increase, like you have better stalls for farms to show up at, and it's just you get more people coming, and so that farms that are attending that market have a better ability to perform in that existing sales channel, or shared resources for farms and food businesses that increase their knowledge or other things to increase their ability to perform in existing sales channels. So moving on to part B, is the degree to which the projected improvement in the capacity of regional food supply chains seems reasonable, given the proposed project and the applicant's current operation and or level of planning. And so this is where we're really, again, checking to make sure that you're not just saying, oh, we're going to serve all of these farms because if we build it, they will come, and really trying to get folks to plan ahead, talk to people ahead of time, figure out what the needs are, and be able to talk about those needs in your application, and talk about all of the other farms or food businesses that say, yes, we want this piece of infrastructure, and we would like to have a kind of a formal agreement of how we're going to be sharing it. And I'll note too, this second caveat here, given the proposed project and the applicant's current operation and or level of planning. So that's really, we're not judging all projects by the same curve, because a small project, we don't expect it to have the same impact as a very, very large project. And so I say that just to make sure that people who have what they maybe see as small projects don't feel discouraged that you'll have to like somehow feel like you have to have the same impact as, say, a food hub who serves hundreds of farms or food businesses. The third item here, part C, is the degree to which the project directly addresses a specific gap or barrier within Washington's local and regional food supply chain. This is where we ask you to tell us, what is your big gap or barrier that's stopping your operation um, from going to the next level, to being able to serve more people, reach more markets, and hopefully the way you've designed your project will really address that gap or barrier head on. And so this is uh, um, a very important part of the application, and I would make sure you just like think on this is where if you have multiple projects or multiple sections of your project, multiple kind of mini projects, like you want to do some marketing, and you want to do a farm stand, and you want cold storage, that can totally work, but it should tie back to your specific gap or barrier that you describe. And the more that all of the items in your budget kind of get further away from the specific gap or barrier that you describe in your application, the harder it will be for reviewers to see that what you're proposing is going to have the biggest impact to you. And so making sure that if you have multiple barriers and you want to address multiple barriers in your application, that you're really outlining all of those multiple barriers in your application. Part D is the degree to which the applicant organization is clear about the specific farms, ranches, food businesses, and community stakeholders the project will benefit. And so this is similar to parts A and B. We have a specific question here where you're kind of talking about who those stakeholders are and what the nature of the support is. And so we just want to see that folks actually have a direct connection with other folks and it's not, as I said, just aspirational. And finally, the degree to which the project expands access to specific culturally relevant foods or food processing services. And so this is where we are asking folks to tell us what is culturally relevant about your operation, your foods, your food processing services, and how this is really that your project will address those and expand access to them, and things that maybe aren't or have never been available in Washington markets. So those are the three main scoring categories. And then I'll just note that we have bonus points also for new grant recipients and small businesses. And so this is 6 points possible. I think it's like a total of 5% bump around there if you got both of them. And so we're prioritizing applicants who have received less than $100,000 in grant awards from from our program, the Washington State Department of Agriculture Regional Markets team, in the past 3 years. And so this includes the local meat processing capacity grant from the last 2 years, and or the Washington Local Food System grant, which is the second time we've opened this grant. And then also small farms and ranches with less than $350,000 in gross cash farm income in 2022, or small food businesses other than farms or ranches with less than $500,000 in annual revenue in 2022. And so all that together is the 78 possible points. And those are things to keep in mind as you're filling out your application with regard to the evaluation criteria.
And just noting we have a little time check, so if anybody has any other Q&A questions.